Good evening, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and get the ball rolling. We might still have a few more people join us. Before I officially welcome our featured authors tonight, I would like to ask everyone, the closest we have come to being able to make this look like a fun TV show is if you hide the video of hide the profiles of anybody that's not a video participant. So this is how you do that. You go to any one of the grayed out squares you see when you see a person's name and their video and their microphone's muted. Go to one of those rectangles if it's showing, and in the upper right hand corner, you click once on a little blue square, and underneath that, two options will show up: chat and hide non-video participants. So if you click hide non-video participants, voila, all you will see is me, Ed Pavlić, and Kiese Laymon. Oh my God, I did it. We talked about your pronunciation. I've never said his last name that way until tonight as a joke. So welcome again. My name is Janet Geddes. I am the business owner and founder at Avid Bookshop here in Athens, Georgia, although I think we have people tuning in from all over, not just in Athens. I'm recognizing a lot of familiar names and customers that are so beloved to us that we haven't been able to see for a really long time because our store has been closed to the public since mid-March. Thankfully, because of you voluntarily paying a few bucks to attend an event like this, because you are buying the featured event books, as well as the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of other books we have for sale at avidbookshop.com, we have been able to stay in business despite not being able to welcome you in our doors, which is phenomenal. And we have also been able to meet payroll at every single pay period since March, which is, it just blows my mind to think about that we have not had the financial stress that I think a lot of other retail has. And that's because I think everyone here, as well as the featured authors, recognize that an independent bookstore is a special kind of place, a community hub, and particularly for people who are really invested in community and writing. I think those are a lot of the people that we have here tonight. So without further ado, I'm going to tell you how excited we are to welcome Ed Pavlić and Kiese Laymon here. I think this is, I can't remember if we sold books at all three of Kiese's events that he did in Athens, but so Ed initially introduced me to his work because I believe you assigned this book, the original edition, which is now in a new edition, How to Slowly Kill Yourself and Others in America. We have sold tons of copies of this. Initially, I first heard of it because Ed Pavlić taught it in one of his classes. So we had stacks and stacks and stacks of them. And then people who worked for me at Avid would pick it up and be like, why is this a sign? Oh my God. So people's minds are being blown by this book. And I will say that I think that Ed Pavlić is one of the reasons that Kiese Laymon is a household name here in Athens, Georgia. And now, as we will hear a little bit more from the conversation, his fame is really phenomenal. And we are so proud to have worked with him so many times over the years. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Ed and Kiese, and I will jump back in towards the end of the event around 7:45 to relay any questions you have in the comments. So if you have any comments or questions that you would like to relay to our featured authors, please drop them in the chat and we may feature you at the end of the night. Thank you so much. I'll see you guys around 7:45.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you, Janet. What's happening, fam? How you?
Man, here we are.
I love your sweatshirt. I love your gear.
He told me he's gonna have a black sweatshirt just like that on. Watch. Like,
I wish.
Yeah.
I wish I had one like that. I like how that one folds.
UW Inside Out.
Oh,
yeah, Inside Out every day.
Oh,
every day the same thing.
Man, thank you so much for making time for me once again. I feel like our whole relationship in some way is like you making time for me, fam. So
hey,
thank you.
We'll keep going. But it's a pleasure to see you in real time. Usually it's text here, text there, and I didn't know on the run. I never know where you're gonna be when I write you. But
you hit me at the last time you hit me. I just wanted to tell you hit me. I was on the road. I was driving across the country going somewhere, and you be hitting me with the ill playlist at the right time. I was so sleepy, and you hit me with was it Janae?
Yeah, Janae.
Yeah, the last joke. Oh man, that I don't know if y'all know that album, but that mug, I didn't go to sleep. I was all right.
Put it on repeat and keep on going.
Let's go.
Yeah. Well, we've got that in common. The propensity for long drives, 18, 20-hour drives. I don't know how you do it. You're mid-40s, you're getting there. It's good.
Man, you know what? I can say to you is like, when I've been having to drive a lot, like sometimes I'll drive like 18 hours, 19 hours, 17 hours. And I didn't think I had it in me no more. Like I thought I left that shit in my 20s and 30s. But like, when you do it, you feel good, but like your body break down for like the next week. Cause
right. Yeah. Just getting out of the car afterward.
And we also got in common, Ed, like upstate New York, like I was trying to remember the first time I read you. And the first time I read you was my colleague Michael Joyce hit me. It was my first year. It was either in 2001. Anyway, but I never connected you with like Schenectady or upstate New York. You know what I mean? Like I never put you there. Or initially Indiana, where we also spent time.
Right. I know.
Yeah, like grinding in upstate New York. Like that's sort of how we both got to where. That's sort of how we got to this conversation.
I think you were at Vassar 14 years, something like that, right?
Yep.
I was up there for 9.
Wow.
So that was a good chunk of life up there.
And you started there when?
97.
Okay.
Fall of 96.
Fall of 96. Yeah, Michael gave me something that you written. I don't know if you know Michael Joyce. He was really in the hypertext and stuff. Yeah, he gave me some stuff in 2001 because that's where I just started at Vassar. It was like November 2001. That was the first joint I read. And then Mark Anthony Neal, me and him just had long conversations about you, man. Wow. You were like this ghost,
Mark was up there too in Albany.
Right.
His wife worked with my wife, Stacy. They worked together at the same program at Union College.
At Union, okay.
And Mark and them lived we lived like 3 blocks from each other, man.
Vassar used to play Union in hockey. I forgot what that division. It changed divisions, but we used to play because I was an assistant basketball coach at Vassar for like my first 3 years. So we used to always have to come up there,
Well, look, it's a funny thing. This will get us to like our first taste of this book in a minute.
Right.
But I moved from Midwest, from Madison to upstate New York to take that job. And we had a 2-month, 3-month-old baby at the time, brand new job I didn't know how to do. It was a totally different life when we got out of, we unpacked the U-Haul truck. and up until then, I had been pretty consistent with, if basketball wasn't my first love, it was right there with whoever else, was my life. It was absolutely a essential part of like my daily life. And we moved to upstate New York, and it just all went away, man.
Word.
Yeah, the baby, the new job, all these words in my head all the time. I didn't play basketball. A couple summers up there, I got it out a little bit, but I have almost no recollection, and just I didn't watch it. We didn't have TV for years. I really fell into.
You were because you told me before,
space, man. Yeah.
You were focused, like you put your head down, you just went.
So and then we had another baby, and life went on. So I coming down here, then things opened up a little bit. And I ran into your work first because we had a colleague, Chloe Wigston Smith.
Oh yeah,
at Vassar.
Yeah.
She arrived. She's like, my colleague up there, Kiese, you need to look up his work and get invited. Okay, who's this gonna be?
Chloe, yeah.
Oh, she's right.
Yeah, I like, that. But that's what I always feel, Ed, man. Like, I don't even know what people mean when they say writers, but I know whatever the fuck they mean. I know they mean like you, fam. Like you. I don't need to tell you what you do, but I will just say, man, fuck it. Like, I ain't got, we might be dead tomorrow. I'm just gonna tell you, like, so like when I got to New York, all I did was play ball. You know what I'm saying? Like, and play ball and teach. Do you know what I mean? Like, I was just obsessed, man. I was 26. I was just, the kids were like 20, 21, 19.
Yeah, almost peers with the students, yeah.
Yo, and I was playing ball with them. I was assistant coach, so I was playing ball with the team. Yeah. I got the reason, and it's so strange. I'm so strange we're talking about this right now. But the reason I stopped coaching for Vassar was because I broke an NCAA violation, which was like I brought one of the kids on our team to play in the summer league. And like, and the fucking athletic director was like, that's an NCAA violation. I'm like, I think we're gonna be good. Ain't nobody really fucking, peeping Vassar for no violations.
Yeah.
But she wasn't happy with that. But anyway, and Madison, like after I was born in Jackson, I moved to Madison when I was like 1 or 2 because my parents went there for grad school. So I feel like we stepped over each other at different times. And then I'm just so grateful for you, fam.
One summer I was even down in Florence working.
In Mississippi?
Yeah.
That's where Tay Reeves is from, the governor.
I know, we talked about that a little bit.
Yeah. That's crazy. Damn.
I think it was a battery plant or something I was working in.
Yeah, okay.
It was I remember Popeyes. I remember this is where I figured out.
I remember Popeyes.
My first time really in the deep South, and I realized it took me a week to realize that basketball isn't played in the afternoon.
No.
It's played after dark, because of course it's too hot in the summer. So I get off work at 3:30. I take off my work boots, put on my hoop shoes, and that's what I did. Wherever I would go find a court, and everything was empty. I'm like, what's going on?
Yeah, man.
But then I think I was going to dinner and back, and I passed the court. And okay, 7:30, 8 o'clock, things get going. So
I remember the night they dropped the first night lights at this court we used to play at called Lake Hyco
in Jackson.
Yes, man. But G, I'm telling you, it was like it was like the equivalent of Walmart when it comes to these little rural towns and shit, and Walmart becomes the mall. Like fam, it was motherfuckers who didn't go home for 2 days straight because of the lights. I swear, niggas were just out there just balling, just like going for like, because we only played we played sometime if we were, out of school, we play early in the morning, and then we play like after 6 because it's just so hot.
It's too hot.
And if you had lights, you could go, if you didn't have to go home, you could just go till whenever, People was like, I got next at like 4 a.m. It was not popping, bro, because I couldn't even play good back then. I was just happy to be there,
Right. No, that was the thing. Yeah. So we have in a weird way, we bounced in these same spaces.
Yes.
Hey man, I want to talk a little bit about the DeAndre chapter in the book, because that was a piece I hadn't seen before.
Oh wow!
Weekend, I had never seen that piece before.
Oh wow! Okay, yeah, let's talk about that.
Much in there, and I've got my wife's got a cousin who's been playing overseas for about 12 years now. He came out of the Tar Heels.
Oh my goodness!
I recognize that.
Who is that? Who is that?
Will Graves.
Oh yeah.
2-3 player.
Yep.
2 guard, basically, maybe small forward. Came out of Greensboro, double state championship, then got booted for dope.
Wow.
Ended up overseas. He's still over there playing.
You know what's interesting when you say that though, fam, is like when I started coaching at Vassar, moved to Poughkeepsie, like that was my first sort of like introduction to New York basketball players, period. And everybody used to be talking about they were going overseas. But it be jokers who didn't play in middle school. You know what I'm talking about? Like, I'm like, fam, have you ever played organized? Right. And they're like, yeah, I'm gonna try to get my first shot at it overseas. I'm just like, wait a minute, my G, like, how you getting there?
Yeah.
You know? Like,
yeah. No. Well, look, obviously I can't express like how happy I am to see this work, man. The newer stuff joined with the older stuff, all of it in a great package with good distribution and reliable people behind it, and people who really get you, know you, love you.
Yeah.
And a little bit likewise for you, I think, with them,
Right. Absolutely.
So happy and can't wait for Long Division to follow.
Yeah. I saw the cover today. I gotta send that to you.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's like I wanted to. It's like I wanted it to be, man.
Yeah. And we put these 3 books up there right next to each other in the way they should be, and then keep on going.
Yeah, just leave it, just go. That's my thing.
So because these are older pieces and some of these are, early work of yours, I wanted to ask, I remember you saying in writing here and in speech all over the place that you couldn't have finished Heavy if you hadn't come back to Mississippi.
Right.
But I'm wondering about these essays, especially the early ones, and, you know, to what extent you think it was necessary to be away from home to start out in the way that you did.
Yeah, you know, I started out, I got kicked out of school in 95. And then I got kicked out of school in 94. And then I went to Jackson State in 94, 95. And then I went to transferred to Oberlin. But like, when I got to Oberlin, fam, like, a lot of it was just Oberlin was just so artsy. Like, I didn't know, like, it was the only school that accepted me because I got kicked out for fighting and stealing. And I didn't realize it was so artsy. So I just saw all of these people, mostly like Black folks from all over the world doing art. And that was the first time that, you know, people always talk about that cliche, you got to leave to fucking write, you know, Baldwin talks about that shit too, right? And yeah, I mean, I will say, I wrote a lot about Mississippi when I was at Vassar, but the reason I felt like I needed to come home was because I don't know, I just felt like I was cheating Mississippi in some way because I was writing about home, yet I was doing what a lot of people who can do, which is to you know, whether you run out or you ran out, you don't come back. Yeah. So I needed, and I just kept writing, you know, Long Division is all about Mississippi. I just wanted to, and then fam, like, you know, I signed that contract for Heavy, and, you know, I'm like you in that, like, I write, you don't have, you know, I'm gonna write, but like, when I tell you it was the worst writing of my life, like and it was just like, I needed to be more taken care. I needed more loving, like, spirits. That sounds so corny, but I just needed more love around me in terms of spatial shit to do what I was trying to do in Heavy. And that's the only way I can say it, bro. Like, cause I wrote 400 or 500 pages of Heavy, and my God, those were some bad pages. And then as soon as I got home, you know, I wrote the Outcast joint. I mean, I wrote the how you doing Oxford, you know, piece. Yep. And then I wrote some reviews. I reviewed Eddie's book. I mean, that's one of my favorite reviews. And then I've sat down and I rewrote my book.
Okay.
You know?
Wow. So early on, you know, we all know from Heavy how you were subject to all these writing assignments as a child. Something we absolutely do not share in common.
Real?
But I'm wondering how you think, you know, what was it like where this kind of compulsory thing that you were forced to do and even punished, you know, into doing became somehow this thing you kind of needed to do with an engine of its own, you know? When do you remember that happening and where? Was it even in high school or
Yeah, it was in high school. You know what it was? It was like, I wrote this essay, and I was writing for my school paper, and, you know, the first time your boys or you know, your girls, because I went to school with the same people from 4th grade on, and or that girl you love or like see your art and they're like, anything other than like nothing, like I remember that feeling like right now, Phil. I remember like right this second when this woman I went to school with my entire life, Berica Whittington, incredible psychologist now. She read a piece I wrote. She was like, we were like 16, and she was like, I liked your article. And I'm telling you, Ed, I'm telling you right now, my G, like, I'm getting goosebumps when she was like, I liked your article. And I'm not trying to be like, oh, I did it because, you know, because me and Berica, like, that was my girl. But like, I was like, you like that shit I wrote? You know, and then my boy, Lathan, he was like, man, you did, you know, he talk a little different, but he was like, man, you showed, because his shit is always oppositional. He was like, man, you showed them motherfucker. You know, like, and I was just like, you felt that shit? So it was like in high school when I started writing a piece, and it was all about the music at the dances. You know what I'm saying? It was not a fucking meaningful piece, really. But people I loved told me that shit meant something to them, and I felt like I started chasing that feeling ever since then.
Yeah. Because I imagine it's you know, it's being seen in another way.
Yeah.
Seen in a way that that isn't visible. You know, it's something that isn't visible that now people are seeing because you've made it into print, and now they've seen it, and now that's you.
And you know what's so crazy, Ed? It's like, I mean, I grew up, man, you know, playing ball with dudes football and basketball with dudes who would go to the NFL and go to the NBA. And you know, when you playing with somebody, you know, growing up, it's hard for you to see them as a prodigy or even tall. I remember when I went to school and I went to school at the math. I went to school in DC for a year, and I came back, and this dude Othello Harrington, I was like, that motherfucker got tall, but you know, he'd always been 6'9". It was just like I left. You know what I'm saying? And when I came back, fam, like I went to the math. The math was like nationally ranked in basketball, and I came and that was the first time. Also, I was like, yo, they ranked, but they can't play like us. Like it was the first time I just understood that the South was not just devalued in all these other ways, but also like in terms of basketball, we were seen as a football state. But for me, fam, it was just like realizing I was never gonna be the baller I thought I was, and I wanted to be an MC. But that feeling I got from my friends telling me they felt some shit I wrote, it was just the best feeling in the world, bro. Like, and it still is, you know?
Yeah.
You know, like when I write, because you know, you do this, like, you know, when people talk about writers, like those people also are like fucking exquisite readers. So if I ever write something and you hit me like, yo, you did that, like, you know, you just know. I mean, I'm grateful when anybody tells me I did anything decent, or even if they tell me my shit is fucked up, I'm just grateful. I don't know about you.
Yeah.
I just be grateful, my G. But it's just a feeling like when the people you love are moved by your art, it's just nothing like it. I don't care what nobody say. It ain't shit like it to me.
Yeah. No, I feel that. What about you though? What about, you know, I was saying that we could imagine this being a way for people to see you in a way that's not visual, you know,
Right.
because, you know, I came up with a profound sense early on, you know, even, well, I think this crashes into us in puberty in a new way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It all becomes different at that time in life. But I had a very, very strong sense of the way the world was perceiving me, doing a certain violence to me, falsifying things, lying about me. And that's why basketball was so important, because on that court, in those lines, all that stuff had to stop.
Right.
And the truth was the truth.
Right.
It was, could you stand in front of me or not?
That's it.
And if you can't, everybody saw it, you know, and they can lie all they want, but it was that thing. And
yes.
And I, you know, as I grew up, and like, you know, I'm not gonna be, I was like, what, 6 feet, 5'11", you know, 160. I wasn't going to be a big time basketball player at that size. You know, I wasn't superhuman in that way. I'm not AI, you know.
Right.
So you got to think, you know that thing in a young man's brain which starts to twirl like, well, this isn't going to last forever. What are you going to do?
Right.
And that was my biggest worry. Like, what will happen when I can't do this anymore? When I can't call this me, you know?
Ooh, yes.
And so then there was for me, there was quite a long time in between, but where writing came around was into that space where I started to, you know, Yusef Komunyaka pretty much tricked me into doing this. Just, you know, writing in a certain way. He just was like, you know, try it. So I did. And I thought, that's me.
Yeah, fam. Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And then like the whole world was kind of spinning around, but I remember the sensation of that print being like in a different dimension.
Yes.
As part of me. And then, so that, you know, then I became very interested in that feeling. And
was this in Indiana?
Yeah. I
That's
pursued
so crazy.
that feeling, and still do. But so I'm wondering about that for you too. Does that feel familiar?
Yes, that's I mean, that's scary, beautiful, familiar. It's like you know, when you said that, I just remember the first time. It's like the second I wrote an essay and then they turned it in for some contest in my state. And then like I won like the best essay in the state contest. And I had never, it was the first time I even had like tried. And I had never, you know what I mean? Like, I just never thought of myself. And it took me until I was like 30 to think of myself as a writer, do you know? But I will say winning that award, this is why I think these awards and shit, while they are fucked up, are really important for like young writers, like development, sadly. I remember after I won that award, I felt like confident. And in the last piece I wrote of the year, they were trying to bring this, you know, fucked up conservative governor, Kurt Fordyce, to give the graduation speech. And in the essay I wrote, I remember I wrote the word, I pretty much was like, you know, the school has to prove that it actually gives a damn about the principles it espouses, blah, 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 blah. And I mean, you can feel this, bruh. Like being 17 and writing the word damn in a piece that your teachers, your mama, your friends are gonna read, and then having people be like, that's good, you know what I mean? That's solid, you know. And then because I was so, there are a lot of reasons I didn't go to graduation in high school, but also part of it was like I just dropped that shit, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, but also I was embarrassed because I graduated near the bottom of my class, but also it's just like I can write, you know. And so yeah, like you're right, fam. It's just like when people see you no longer as class clown, as you know who I was, or you know, most wittiest, or whatever the awards are like class favorite and all that shit, or like the basketball player or so and so's boyfriend, and then you know so and so, like, you know, that's Kiese or that's Kiese, you know, he be writing like that shit that they saw me, when they saw me different, I saw me different, you know.
Yeah, there it is.
That's it.
So you know, I don't know, maybe a massive fast forward here, but I'm interested in the beginning, the author's note, you know, part which is new for the book, and the piece where you say, you know, the importance of what you call ending unhealthy transactional relationship, and because that feeling you're describing and I was describing, you know, there are exchanges going on there, but they're not monetary, you know.
No.
And I'm wondering, like, what happens? How do you handle the encroachment of business, sales, postures, publicity, all that stuff? You know, how do you prevent? Because I've seen, you know, I've known a bunch of. I don't know that many people, like really know that many people, but strangely enough, I ended up knowing several writers when they were, you know, just scratching out their first books.
Right.
And very soon they became very, 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 like, I remember, you know, Terrence Hayes rolled through Schenectady and slept on the couch, man, you know, 5 years later, bam, you know, Natasha too, all kinds of people. And I've seen the battles that go on.
Yeah.
You know, and for my money, Terrence has handled that just about as good as you could possibly imagine.
Right.
But not everybody, you know, people change, their work changes, their the way they smell changes, you know.
Yeah.
And a lot of it boils down to the question of sales, self-sales.
Wow.
Really.
Yeah.
You know, obviously in the Black tradition, the notion of self-selling,
yep,
and auctions and all that stuff is so loaded and so lethal that the stakes go up and up and up and up.
Yep.
So I'm wondering, you know, because you obviously have thought a lot about this, and you've also traveled this thing now quite recently,
right,
in ways that are really dramatic. But I wonder if you have any thoughts about, you know, and I was thinking about later on in the book, you're talking about the worst of white folks. You know, it can't be convinced; it has to be defeated.
Right.
These things, you know, there's a time to fight in life.
Right.
And I think that the auction is the same. The auction can't be denied.
Oh,
you
my
can
Lord.
hide out. You know, it doesn't do any good to hide out and not, you know, not play the game.
Right.
But it can't be negotiated with. At some point, it needs to be broken. It needs to be confronted and defeated. And you know, I see you doing this pretty much like hour by hour, basically. And that's only what I see. So I'm wondering if you have anything to say about, like, you know, your whatever comes to mind in that situation.
You know what, Ed, fam, like, honestly, I think, yeah, I mean, I just remember, you know, vividly not that long ago when I just want to talk real talk for like the last however long we got. Like, I remember, like, I sent my shit to every fucking publisher in New York.
Right.
Then I sent my shit to fucking like Tavis Smiley. You know what I'm saying? Motherfucking what's it? Michael Eric Dyson, Cornell West. Literally, I'm just like, yo, I don't need a hookup, but can you give me some advice?
Uh-huh.
And that's why I just want, I mean, this is a segue, but one of the reasons that I love you so much is because like I literally have asked you for advice that I was afraid to ask anybody else about, because I didn't want them to feel less than about the shit I was asking about. You know, like I've asked you, you know, to help me out with like negotiations and shit, you know? And that's a hard thing to do because of what you're saying about the sale. I'm just trying to connect it. And I think a lot of us on this thing, and I think us too, like the thing about the writing is that it's there. But the thing about being an American is that at some point you want to sell yourself to the person that hates you most. I mean, like you just do. Like you've been taught to do that. Like, you know, like I wanted to sell myself to a major corporation on their terms because that major corporation would make my mama, my grandma, my auntie eat, but also would make Ed Pavlić see me out in the world and be like, I'm a writer. But if you're constantly trying to sell yourself to the person who kind of disrespects and hates you most, which means you want to be seen through that person's eyes, like I just don't know what happens to your eyes and your art. I mean, I think there's some like incredible, intricate, wonderful art being created for people who hate us. And I just don't want to repeat that shit, fam. Like I know it, you know, like I got on real late. I didn't publish my first book till I was 38, 39. I've been writing that whole time, you know, trying to get picked, trying to get chosen. And the dude who chose me, you know, I thought we were collaborators. I was like, oh, we finna collaborate. We finna put these 2 books out. It was 3 books. We finna put these 3 books out. We're gonna go about it together. And when I hit him on some like, yo, you bought me and my book for a G. You made like $200,000-$400,000 off of it. You know, as boys, like let's renegotiate this shit and let's change the art. And when the dude was like, nah, you gotta make me an offer. It just more than anything, it just hurt my fucking feelings, bro. And in my heart, I don't do well when my feelings get hurt. Like I want to fight, right? And I fight with my art. And that shit happened before Heavy came out. So like I never talked about this part of it, but I was like, yo, I'm gonna get my shit back, you know, and I'm finna fucking drop this book on the world. And then my people who I do love and trust had to be like, Kiese, don't go after that dude. Don't go after anybody, you know, Vass or anybody else. Like, you got to put that in a healthy place. But when you sell yourself to people who you should never sell yourself to via the institution or a publisher, sometimes when you can't hit yourself hard enough, you just want to hit them.
Yeah.
And I think people know that feeling, even if you don't know the exact situation. I think we've all been in that feeling, you know?
Yeah. No, you know, and you, the last 3-4 years, you had a lot coming at you, man. I remember like maybe a week, 2 weeks before Heavy was gonna come out, you had the whole tour lined up, and there were already like people in Pittsburgh lined up at a bookstore waiting for you. You weren't gonna be there for 10 days. They're already, you know, you could see it happening. And I remember I wrote you and said, you know, hey man, just, you know, reach out. Are you out there? This is gonna be a lot. And I mean, you know what you wrote me back? I'll never forget it. You said, it's all right. When I get overwhelmed, I just remember I'm not special.
Bruh, I mean, that's what I'm saying. We're gonna have real talk now. Like, I don't know if that's the way to deal with all of this shit, but you know, I go from teaching a class on Atlanta to like Donald Glover wanting to talk to me on the phone a lot about some shit, you know? And like I can front like it's always supposed to be that way, you know, but like nah, I never thought that shit would happen. But at the end of the day, man, I know special motherfuckers. Like we know special people. Like I'm, you know, like I ain't special. Like I ain't special. I ain't special.
You know, there's a certain sense in which that attitude is special. But it's
right.
It's the same way where you talk. I'm not sure which essay it is. It might be the second person essay where you talk about our particularity.
Right.
You know, art of storytelling. It's art of storytelling.
Yeah.
Our particular, not my particular.
Right.
And you know, little things like that are profound, man.
That's a Baldwin move, though.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
right.
You know,
like. the desire to like to make an hour, to make a we, to make us, you know, like to make these massive proclamations about yourself and the reader that have some specificity to it that aren't cliche. I just think he did that shit like maybe too much, but like bar none.
Yeah. But at the same time, Baldwin was very, you know, he was very powerfully behind the idea that he was special.
Right.
For his vision of us, he was special. And he comes from a generation where there, you know, there could be only one writer.
Yes,
you know?
Yes.
He was from that thing. I think Morrison and basically the Black women of the 70s institutionalized that kind of communal strength.
Us, we.
In literary terms.
Right.
It came out of the movement, you know, in political terms. And before that, it came out of just the survival of Black communities that was in Black women's hands. And that became just a different kind of dynamic. And I think it's no accident that you raised in the place and by the people you were raised.
No doubt.
You know, that's a certain kind of power which, as I was saying to someone recently, you know, that kind of Black power has no name in the South and no equivalent in the North.
Yeah, man. Right. You know, and you know what, Ed, like that's what I'm saying. It's like, you know, the regional thing, it's you know, I wanted to sort of configure this book because I wanted some essays that were written down South to sort of start that book. And you know, every essay in that book is like, you know, you read Mississippian Awakening, and then the next essay is like how. And then you read that essay and next, you know, so I wanted it to be how, like, how did we get here? Let me read the next, how did we get here? And I just think it's important for me to say that, like, at the end of that essay where I say, like, I want to be here, you know, in a Mississippi where there is no, you know, prisons and guns. And I say the worst of white folk, like people who know the traditions of where I'm from, and, you know, a Black writer can't say, I'm looking forward to a future with the worst of white folks are gone. Like you can say it, but you got to pay for it. Like, right. Because that's the inverse of what we're saying about getting bought. It's like, you still have to sometimes pay, even when you refuse to be bought the way they want you to be bought. And I get a lot of letters from people who read the shit or read around shit I write. And in Mississippi, I mean, I wrote something about a lady who was running for Senate, but like that line in that piece, like I got like some bad fucked up letters from people, you know, calling me a racist and all that shit, but also saying like I was trying to exterminate. Because in my state, we don't get to say we want a future that looks like this, where the worst part of you is gone.
Yeah.
You know, we don't get to say that shit. But we do. And that's what I just have to keep remembering. Like, right? We do.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, man. Well, I don't know. We almost at the question time. But I've got so many other things to say and to ask. I don't know if we have time. Well, how about on the Awakening piece, which was that set in the book before Vanity Fair published it? Do you know?
It was a 22 day. It was a much bigger piece. It wasn't cut up in the days. It was always going in that book, but it was a different
because
shape.
What I'm wondering is where's our cran raspberry dude?
Now see, that's what I'm saying about how this writing shit is hard, right? Like I tried so hard to write that piece, like the piece I just wrote for Vanity Fair, where I'm literally, you know, I was literally trying to fuck with like ekphrastic shit. I was trying to put our cranberry dude in there, put him in a conversation with Baldwin, and slightly in a conversation with fucking like my mailman, and your like actual friend, right? And I just couldn't get it, fam. I just couldn't get it. I couldn't get it because you know what? Like I hadn't seen the clip yet. Like I tried to write that piece. I tried to write a piece about pleasure, but the clip is what pushed me. Like we talked about that clip a lot, man. And that clip like pushed me into that. I don't know about you. Like songs like Find Me, you know, in art, when I be trying to find them to write the shit, I can't never find the right shit, but that shit found me.
Yeah.
And it belongs in that book, but I just couldn't write it. I just couldn't write it until it was done. You know?
Right.
Yeah.
I was wondering this. If you're those of you that don't know, we're talking about that viral TikTok video with the guy on the longboard filming himself drinking cran raspberry juice. Cran raspberry juice with the Fleetwood Mac song playing, Dreams playing in the background. Everybody who's watching probably have seen that thing. You couldn't have avoided it in the last few months, but yeah, that was something magical about that. And but it was in the Vanity Fair piece, at least the online piece.
Yeah, those are two different pieces, right? Like the Vanity Fair piece with the Ocean Cran Raspberry, like that just came out into December.
Right.
But
so that was too late for this.
It was too late, but I was trying to write it. Like I was literally like I have a draft where I'm I have to tell myself what I'm trying to do sometimes. And I was like writing an ekphrastic like essay about pleasure in the pandemic. And I started it.
Okay.
But it couldn't, like I also needed a day, like I don't know about you, but like I just needed a day. Like that piece is like this happened in the morning, this happened at night, this happened the next, I needed some temporality to like lock myself down. I mean, how do you feel? I always think about your work and like temporality seems so important, but it reads like you just are fucking like massaging that shit. Like, is this something that like boxes you in, or are you always creating the boundaries?
Yeah, I'm not good at creating the boundaries.
Okay.
I'm trying to work on that with this new book.
Right.
That's been the hardest part, is trying to figure out, okay, where do I stop? And then I'm here in this time looking back. I will go up 5 years, I'm gonna stand there, and then I'm gonna tell you what happened over this 5 years coming up. Then
right.
Up again, but where is it? Like what's the right vantage point in time, and also like what's the day? What happened?
And it's so crucial. And like I hope readers realize, like in Heavy, when I wrote not the first draft, but when I wrote one draft, I was writing about sexual abuse and writing about something that happened to me with some older woman that was really close to me. And initially, like the book, it was like what happened before it happened. I walk into the house, and then this happens. And then it was something about leaving it that raw in temporality, which I was like, this is fucked up. I can't give that to people and I can't sit in it. So then I had to rewrite it and make it a flashback. So something about like locating it in a flashback somehow like made me feel much more like less abusive and less fucked up to the reader, but also to myself. Because when I was writing that shit in real time, ain't no escaping it, like the next second has to happen. Right. And then I was like, all right, nah, I'm just gonna lock it here and I'm gonna flash back to it because it can be overwhelming if it's linear, right? Yeah. Sometimes.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah. Well, I don't know how we're gonna make this little transition to if there are
Thank you so much.
Will rescue us.
So suave. I'm just gonna jump in and interrupt. This has been phenomenal so far. Let's hope we can keep it up the next week. So we have a few questions from people. And so as is my style, each of these questions is kind of long. So I'm going to just read the first long question and kind of let you guys explore the answer. So this is a question from Kelsey. She writes, one of my favorite Baldwinian ideas is that a writer has only one story to tell in the end. And the stuff is to just tell that story over and over again in better ways to develop. Do you think that idea has truth in it? As an author dedicated to revision, how do you think of your books and their additions/changes as related to one another?
I do think that's true, but I don't think that's like only true. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, that's a great question, actually. I think that, like, for example, like I know Long Division, like to me, that Long Division was 2 books, but to me, like those 2 books in Long Division, How to Slowly Kill Yourself, which is husky to me, and Heavy, and this next sort of like long poem I'm trying to pull off, that to me is like it, like that's the end of a kind of writing. And I'm sure some thematics are gonna seep into the new shit I'm writing too, but I kind of don't want to believe you're always, I mean, I know Baldwin's right, but I don't want to believe it. But I think he's right. What do you think?
There's probably a core.
Yeah.
There's a core that you keep re-articulating, taking
right.
apart, putting back together. yeah, I guess depends on how long you keep going and how long we got.
That's right.
But I think for me personally, I can very easily see the story that I'm kind of locked in.
Right.
Yeah, and just trying to figure out what's the next way to have at it.
Yeah.
And for me,
Yeah.
it's a matter of trying to make it seen in a way it hasn't been seen yet.
Yeah. And so, like, for example, I'm really I wanted to write 5 books that were really different, but they were sort of
Right.
like my attempts to explore among other, like the most important thing was like my grandmother's radiance, right? And her godliness. That's what I feel like my first 5 books, when they're all done, are gonna be, always complicated radiance, but it's radiance nonetheless. But one thing I'm trying to do in this new work is to think about the relationship that my grandmother had to like my understanding of not just sexuality, but sexuality and intimacy. And so I'm telling myself that's a different story than I'm different, but actually it's not, it's not. Even though I'm gonna have to use different word assemblages, I'm gonna have to write shit that I'm scared to write, but it's still sort of rooted in the same shit. You're right. Yeah. So, I mean, I think he's right. So I don't want him to be right, but I think he's right. Yeah.
That was an excellent question, and thank you. I like the richness of those responses, and that it's not a simple answer. Okay, I got more for you. Ready? Here's another long one. This is from Miss Cindy. She writes, "It seems you have compartmentalized great portions of your experience. Do you agree? And do you think that it was a survival mechanism that allowed you to access your experiences for your writing? Have you experienced healing through your writing? And do you find that the deeper you dig, the deeper it takes you into your own knowledge?"
I feel like that's a very therapy-ish question
I
right
know.
there. It's got all the therapy words up in there, I think. I don't know. Yeah, I think I don't know about healing, but I think I have to remind myself that healing doesn't mean healed.
Right.
And I think I want to be honest and say I think my writing has definitely helped me heal, but because it's not just pure and it's so connected to commerce and business and product and ego and people wishing the worst or the best for you. It's never, I can't never just be like, oh, it's just my art. You know what I mean? Like it's all that other stuff that I think makes this a little hard. What you think, Ed?
I guess no, I don't feel healed by my writing, but
Right.
I do feel in a way saved by
Yeah.
it. I think if I've been healed by writing at all, it's been the fact that had I not been doing it, the injuries would have been fatal.
Right.
Flat
Right.
out, 100%. There's no way I'm getting from age 25 to 50
Right.
if I don't have if Yusef hadn't tricked me in to looking at some blank pieces of paper with my words on them.
Yeah.
There's no
And,
way it would have happened.
and you know when you said that, I'm thinking about how sometimes I feel often more saved by like things I read, like every, not every day or anything, or even every week, but I think about Baldwin, right? And when Baldwin wrote that sentence about, you know, to be free, you have to give up that thing you think you can't live without. He said this so many times, but like safety is an illusion and blah blah blah. Like that, when I read that I felt saved. But I think some of us who have a tendency to harm ourselves, sometimes we can take things that are saving and we can do the opposite of heal. So what I took when Baldwin was like, you have to rid yourself of things that you think you can't do without. I took that quote literally and like skateboarded into anorexia, because I was like, oh, the thing I can't do without at first was like chicken, and then it was like beef, and then it was like fish, and then it was all kind of white food. And then I'm like, yo, Baldwin said we got to we can't hold on to that thing we can't do without. And so I was like, I'm doing what Baldwin wants me to do by not eating and not sleeping and working out all the time. And Baldwin wasn't thinking nothing about that bullshit.
No.
You know what I'm saying? At all. So I just think it's really interesting how like the things that sometimes can save us, we can wield them in very like injurious ways to other people for sure, and to ourselves.
Well, that's the other dimension, is healing for who?
Exactly.
And when I say this is something that you emphasize so beautifully and so powerfully in ways that can't be mistook, and that is like if I say I'm not making it from age 25 to age 50 without these blank pieces of paper with my words on them, that's one thing, and that's true. But who else am I taking with me?
That's it.
What damage am I putting out there?
Taking somebody.
And something in me, I did enough as it was. We all do, but
Right.
But it would have been worse, a lot worse. And I think somehow I imagine that if I could, I did imagine that through whatever kind of recovery or discovery of new things about the world and myself and other people, we could in some way through that act minimize the damage we're doing to each other.
Right.
There's no program there, and it might be delusional, but when we think about writing and healing, I do think about that just in terms of minimizing the damage and the opportunity.
Can I ask a part 2 to this question, Janet?
Go for it.
Let me ask you this, Ed. So, I like you, I think a lot about language and the words people use go in and out and blah blah. And I don't even know if it's still sort of in style to say facts if someone says some shit that like is factual or we think is true. But I just keep thinking about facts, right? Keep thinking about facts versus whatever story or whatever. And like, how important are facts in your writing process, but also your like saving, like facts? Like, are they important as storytelling to you?
I have a thought in mind. I can't quite get it to my mouth though.
Okay.
I think when again, I think of particulars, proper nouns,
Right.
Time and dates. I remember in poems, I remember when all of a sudden I was putting dates all in the poems and often in titles. And I remember waking up one day and thinking, what are you doing? Because lyrics are supposed to be universal and general, and it happens all the time to everyone, not to one person in one time or these people in that time. But nonetheless, I have these damn dates all over the place, and it was a kind of documentary, factual thing about that. But I remember waking up with this idea that I'm doing the poems like what kidnappers do to the people they kidnap when they put them in front of the camera with a newspaper.
Right.
Right. So that kind of time signature in a way, for sure. But yeah, I went through a whole documentary thing, man. It was all about, factual things.
Right.
But I have that line in Baldwin, from Baldwin, I think it's from The Devil Finds Workbook, where he says, murder's no good. You find yourself at the mercy of the corpse you create.
Right.
And then he said something like, and by extension, we can do something and find ourselves at the mercy of a fact which misses the truth. Yes. And so it was always important to me to bring the fact to life. They have to be living facts. Right. You start with a fact, but somehow it needs to breathe.
And I think Baldwin is getting at that too, even early in his career when he talks about facts, right, being pulverized, or theories being pulverized in autobiographical notes, right? So yeah, like I don't know. I should talk to you more about this, but I'm thinking a lot about the importance or usefulness or utility of facts.
Joyce says something about I was trying to figure out the quote from the Portrait of an Artist book where he says a lyric is the simple liberation of a rhythm, or something like that. And I was thinking of language that does the same thing to facts, so that vivifies facts. Right. A certain treatment that brings them to life. Yes. And makes them, more than that thing that's verified three different times from different.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Because like after the conservatives and Trump and this generation of conservatives made mincemeat out of journalism, everybody recoiled. Oh my God, we need facts. And I'm like, well, yeah, but that ain't gonna get it either. It's like,
it's like we all forgot that
CNN, y'all. That's not the answer.
And it's like we forgot that we come out of a very tradition in the 80s where you know, like our music was literally saying, don't believe the fucking journalists, right? Like Trump was just in some way like imitating Flavor Flav and fucking Chuck D, right? Don't believe the hype, fake news, same, I mean, not the same shit at all. Not the same shit at all, but or is it, you know?
I mean, look, Faye, after everybody freaked out in 2016, I remember telling people again and again and again, Black folks, they've all been Trump.
Yeah.
They're all Trump. We can handle this, but
they all Trump. You said, yeah, you're the person who said that. Like they're all Trumps. Like all these folks out here are Trumps, and that's the way. But the news, like corporate media, can't run with that. You got to deal with the Trump.
Right.
But then my question to corporate media is like, right, but when this Trump is gone, what we gonna do with the 74 other million Trumps?
Right. Trump is very dangerous. All 70 million of them.
Yeah.
Right. That's right. Cool. We have time for one more, or?
We do, and I think this will be a good, I think what I'd like to do, if it works for y'all, is I'm going to do my little ending spiel, but then ask you this last question, and your answers to this last question will kind of just be the close of the event, if that suits you. Worth it? Sure.
Yeah.
So I want to thank everyone for being here. We're going to have one more question from Ryan to pose to the authors, but if y'all haven't already, please go to avidbookshop.com and look up Ed Pavlić and Kiese Laymon. We have lots of books by both of them in stock, and we would be really thrilled to connect you with the written words of these amazing authors. So please support them. It's always so important to support touring authors, and nobody can tour right now. So we're really grateful to people who are kind of going with the flow with us and experimenting and attending virtual events. I saw a lot of people in the chat say this is their first virtual event. So I think that speaks really well of the authors that we brought in tonight, that you convince people to jump over that hurdle. So thank you so much for being here. And both of you have been such a supporters of independent bookstores generally, but each of you has supported my store for years, and it means a whole lot to me. So I'm going to end with this question, and then after the authors answer, they'll wave goodbye and we'll close out the event for the night. We'll send you a follow-up email just to see what you guys thought of it all. So Ryan wrote, people talk about radical love and what that looks to them. Kiese, what is radical love to you, and how does it manifest in your daily life?
Oh, Lord.
I know.
I mean, yeah, I feel like I just wrote about this. I think at this point in our lives, radical love for me is finding that pleasurable thing that is also responsible, but it looks and feels like nothing I've experienced before. Like I'm not just looking for pleasure, but in this time when death is here and here and here and here, and I think death has been there for us for a long, long, long time. I'm just trying to find differently shaped like paragraphs or friendships or, you know, sounds, or, you know, trying to touch myself in places I've never touched myself to literally radically feel good. But to me, I think that's also like there's a responsibility in there. And to me, so concretely, for example, today, like I love to put Q-tips in my ears, but I like to do it so much that like it always comes out white. Ain't no shit never on my Q-tip. So today I was like, I wonder what happened if I just like played in my ear with this Q-tip for like 2 minutes, you know? That was one way for me to love myself today, fam. And that shit is radical because it's for me, because it's not anything I've ever done before. I've been scared to do it for whatever reason, and it made me feel good. And feeling good is what helped me get to this event tonight happy. So that to me is radical.
Wow. A whole new thing with Q-tip.
Yes. You gonna answer it though?
Well, I don't know. I was thinking the first thing that came to mind was this moment from Heavy where you're in high school, I think, and you say, this teacher thought I was an underachieving, red-eyed, whatever kid, you know. And that was, and you say, and you know, and the reader's kind of ready to say, yeah, but she was all wrong. That wasn't what. That's not what. And you say that's almost exactly what I was.
Exactly right.
And,
I got drunk before I came to school that morning. Shit.
You know, that's almost exactly what I was. And I think, you know, people who's had me, there's several students have had me in class in the last couple of years. And I keep coming back in class to this line out of the SZA song where she says, it's probably true what they say about me.
Ooh. Ooh.
And I think there's something radical about that. That, you know, to listen a little bit to the people around you and what they're saying. And in some ways, in a certain way too, about similar to the way you say, I get up in the morning and I think, okay, what do I want to lie about? I'm gonna write about that. You know, these people who are telling you things that about you that you don't think are right. I think there's something radical in listening.
Right.
Not to everybody saying that, you know, but there are certain people for sure, you know, and that's what I was thinking about, you know, that idea of listening to the versions of ourselves which come back to us from the world. And
but if you don't trust the world,
huh?
If you don't trust nobody in the world, it's hard to hear any of that shit, right?
And you know, trust in the world and among people doesn't grow up out of nature, man. That is that is manufactured. We build that.
Yes, indeed.
And you know, you come from a deep tradition of that kind of building. And I arrived as a kid, you know, and thought, well, okay, this sounds like the only thing that's going on in the world, you know. Real, that's, you know, but that's what I thought about with that question in mind.
Yeah, man. You know, I love you, and you know how much I thank you, and I just want to thank you for just being my friend, G. Like, I know I can holler at you whenever, and because I know that, I try not to take advantage of that, but you know, that's a pleasure. Like, that friendship is a radical pleasure, and that's what I wanted to sort of focus on in the beginning of that book. Like, you know, our friendship is part of what got me to talking to you here. So thank you for helping me be able to talk to you, fam. I mean that shit too.
I mean it too. Yeah, I feel the same way. Absolutely, man. And it's, you know, it's not everywhere.
That's right.
It's not everywhere.
It's not everywhere. It's not everywhere. So we gotta love it when we get it. So thank Janet and thank Avid and thank all y'all for making time tonight.
Everybody tuned in. And we'll talk.
Thank you so much, Ed. Thank you. I'm gonna holler at you.
Okay.
All right. Peace.
Take care of yourself. Take care of yourself, everybody.